Yeah, if the board coordinator could commence with roll call, that would be great.
I'll just be asking for the person to just say a present or a here or a yes kind of thing.
Cool.
President Cano Sanchez.
Here.
Vice President Gonzalez. I see him here. Daniel, that's you.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm required to get a verbal. I'll circle back to Daniel. Vice President Rueda.
Here.
Vice President Finley.
Here.
Officer Cuellar.
Here.
Officer Smith.
Here.
Representative Huang.
Here.
Representative Follett.
Here.
Representative Gutierrez.
Here.
Representative Conga Livingstone.
She messes present.
Okay, awesome. I see her. Representative Weinberg.
Here.
Representative Floyd.
Here.
Representative Amora.
Here.
Representative Angeles.
Here.
Representative Lamar.
Here.
Representative Valdivinos. Officer Caudillo.
Here.
Representative Lemus. Flo. Okay. Executive Director Lund.
Here.
Dean Turnbow.
Present.
Yay, Ebony's here. Okay. So at this point, I see Daniel, but don't have a verbal confirmation. I have Representative Valdivinos and Representative Lemus potentially coming in late.
Daniel just put his hand up.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, you have quorum.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item, approval of the agenda. At this time, can I get I should probably explain. Okay, so basically how voting is going to be done for this meeting is we're going to have, I'll proceed with asking for a motion in a second. And then after the motion and the second has been asked, I'll move forward to a vote. For the voting, if you all could direct your attention towards the participants button down there, and you could see that you can click a yes, a no, or you can raise your hand. So a yes is a yes, affirmative forward. A no is a no or nay. Raising your hand indicates you want to abstain. And then we'll go through, Casey and I will go through and count up all the yeas and nays. And then I'll explain the ayes have it by this, or the motion passes blank to blank, or whatever the motion may be. Is that kind of clear for everybody? Okay. So I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve the agenda.
There's a motion from Maura to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Lamar. Is there any objections or abstentions to approving this agenda? Seeing none, the motion passes. The agenda is approved. Next up is the chair's report. There are no minutes. So for the chair's report, welcome you all. Thank you all for coming. I look forward to exploring this Zoom meeting and having our first Zoom board meeting. I know it's going to be kind of challenging, but I'm looking forward to it. And I think we can accomplish some good things today. So we're going to head and move on to the Zoom meeting logistics. I kind of already went through prior to that, giving you a little heads up about how we vote. If anybody has any questions, feel free to private message me. I'll go ahead and respond to you as best as I can, or direct your question to Casey and see if she can get some answers for you. But please feel free to reach out if you need any type of help. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. So at this time, if there's any public comment from the public, we are required to open up that space for it. Is there any public comment? And I would ask that you please indicate verbally. So there's a public comment from CCAT.J.B.Hawkins.
Yes.
Hi. Yes. I don't want to level this as like being critical of anyone in general, but I'm just sort of reporting on the general feelings amongst different program directors on how the budget documents were presented. Just, I think the document that was released on Friday, the last day before spring break at 5 p.m. was very concerning and I would say disorientating for a lot of people. And then I also, just with these small periods that we have to appeal these budgets, I think there's just been a lot of confusion and nervousness and around the budget. And I guess that's all I wanted to add to the meeting.
Yeah, I definitely thank you for your public comment. I'll be expanding on more on that when we get to that item, and I definitely want to create that space to kind of reassure you all. But thank you so much for your public comment. There's also a public comment from Deema Deema.
What's up, y'all? I could talk about this more later too, but it's also come to our attention that like some students aren't aware that they're supposed to be getting paid, even though you can't really do your typical job, especially if it's something that's usually done in person. So I want to see if AS can do anything, or if y'all can reach out to different departments and ensure that all students are paid like they're supposed to, even if they can't do their job as they are. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Deema, for that public comment. I would look forward to kind of expanding on that if you want to personally one-on-one after the meeting, or we can kind of set up a time where we can, we can get you in touch with somebody who can kind of explain better. But yeah, thank you so much for your public comment. Dean Turnbow says she can address your comment later. Later is desired if we could, so that way we can keep on moving along. Thank you, Dean Turnbow. So we'll go ahead and keep moving on if there's any more public comment. Okay, seeing no more public comment, I do want to thank you all for the comments that were given. We'll go ahead and move on to the appointments to committees. This is an action item. So basically for those of you who, okay, for those of you who do not know what necessarily appointments to the committees look like, so basically we'll go through the president, if they have any appointments, the administrative vice president, if they have any appointments, and so on and so forth. So we'll go ahead and start with the president.
Yeah, so I have one appointment, one recommendation to an appointment to make today. It is for Vincent Thomas. They are in the College of they are a part of the College of Natural Resource with an environmental resource engineering major. They're applying for the AS Elections Commission, and the reason is that it has come to their attention that during these strange and tremulous times that the Associated Selections has lack of participation, and so Vincent wants to help with that. And Vincent is one of our AS employees, and we have all had the pleasure to work with them, have seen that they are efficient, get their work done in a timely manner, and always assist Casey to the best of their ability, and that speaks wonders of them, on top of always answering our questions efficiently when we have them, and making sure that the office functions during their time. And that definitely is noticeable within some of us, and this is why I would like to recommend Vincent to the AS Elections Commission.
Okay, are Vincent, are they here in this meeting right now?
Let me
Okay, so since they're not here, I'll ask for a motion to suspend the code 7.03 of the government code to allow the appointment to be made without them being present, as well as to appoint Vincent to the Elections Commission.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a motion from who?
Okay, I'll say a motion to waive the government code. I think it was 7.3. I'm not quite sure, but this is Amora.
Okay. Can we get it all in one motion? Appointment to waive the code and appoint Vincent.
Okay, I motion to appoint, to waive the code and appoint the person to the position.
Okay.
Amora.
There's a motion from Amora to waive the code 7.03 and appoint Vincent to the Elections Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second from Marita. Is there any objections or abstentions to this appointment being made? Seeing none, the motion passes. The appointment is made. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lizbeth. Administrative Vice President.
Yeah, hi everybody. I have no appointments at this time. No recommendations for appointment.
Thank you. I have no appointments either. Student Affairs Vice President.
Hi, everyone. I do have one appointment to recommend. So I interviewed Clara for the Earth Week Every Week committee. She has already actually been attending all of the committee meetings. She attended one today, so she's very up to date with everything that they are already doing, so she's very active. She's also the outreach coordinator for CCAT, as well as doing outreach also for the Environmental Studies Club here on campus, as well as she handles her Instagram. So she's very involved, very passionate about these environmental projects and things that we have going on at AS. So I definitely think she would be an amazing addition to Earth Week Every Week. And if you have any further questions, I'm here. But Clara is not here presently.
Okay, so since the code's already been waived, so the code's suspended for this meeting. So we'll just need a motion to appoint Clara to the Public Relations Committee.
Earth Week Every Week.
Earth Week Every Week Committee. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Claire to the Earth Week Every Week Committee. Smith.
Motion from Smith to appoint, and there's a second from Conga Livingstone. Is there any objections or abstentions to this appointment being made? Seeing none, the motion passes. The appointment is made. Okay. So thank you all for those appointments. Well, next up, we'll move on to the reports. So for the reports, they were given written reports just to save time for us. But there is, I do want to open, so there's no appointments, no reports. But for general discussion, if anybody would like to really expand on what they want to, on what they reported on, I think that'd be great. Or if they had any questions pertaining to somebody's report at this time, this would be the time to make those questions. Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll go ahead and keep moving on to old business. So, Casey, can you clarify where non-board members can find the reports?
Yes, sorry, had to get to the unmute.
No problem.
It was an oversight in our site redesign, and so I'm thinking that I need to create kind of a sidebar on our minutes page where all the reports can be easily found. They get attached to the minutes, but it'd be awesome to make them more accessible, and I have it on my list for next week when the website gets revamped for kind of all our post-COVID virtual announcements.
Okay. Thank you, Casey, so much. So we'll go ahead and move on to old business, which we're starting with the legislation and act to dissolve the Grad Pledge Alliance. So this is up for the second reading. Basically, the board will consider the dissolution of the AS Graduate Pledge Alliance as a students-only AS committee to expand its membership to include other campus members, changing its status to a campus committee. This legislation was authored by Vice President Moreta and Officer Smith, the co-chairs of the AS Graduate Pledge Alliance. You can see the attachment as a PDF for your reference. So if Rada wants to kind of, or Rada or Smith wants to kind of give the second reading.
Yeah, there was absolutely no changes made from when I showed it the last time. So I definitely, I don't want to reread it for everyone. Was there changes? I'm so sorry, y'all. But the Grad Pledge Alliance is, again, something that we used to have here in AS, is kind of just floated around for a few years, kind of looking for a stable home, people to be a part of it, and just more membership. So after meeting with the coordinator for like the alumni office, coordinator for all these different areas that used to be a part of it, the kind of recommendation was that moving it out of AS and allowing other people and other stakeholders to have a share in that would kind of bring us more students and more involvement, because it used to be a really student-driven initiative and it hasn't been in the past. So that's really the hope behind it all. But if you have any further questions, I'm here, and I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Okay. Thank you, Brianna, for giving that explanation about your resolution. Yeah, are there any questions at this time? All right, seeing no questions, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to be made on this item. To clarify, a motion can be made to approve, to table, and various other actions as granted by Sturgis. So a motion needs to be made on this item from one of our board members.
I motion to approve this resolution.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve this resolution and act to dissolve the Graduate Pledge Alliance within the AS. Is there a second?
Second from Floyd.
There's a second from Floyd. Is there any objections or abstentions to this motion being made and to this resolution passing? Seeing none, the motion passes, the resolution is approved. Okay, thank you, Raydon Smith, for authoring that great resolution. Next up is legislation and act in support of financially sound practices. This is another resolution up for a second reading. The board will consider resolving that the Board of Finance should reevaluate the current AS board stipend system and draft a proposal to the Board of Directors. This legislation was authored by Vice President Finley and submitted with the support of 10 student signatures and you can see an act in support of financially sound practices as a PDF for your reference. Also on the share screen. Thank you. I don't know if it's Casey or Janessa, but thank you, whoever's doing that. So I can go ahead and kind of give the explanation. Nothing changed from the last time. This is a resolution just asking that we just reevaluate and look at what our stipends are, and that basically it would come back to the Board of Directors after the Board of Finance had kind of mulled it over and figured out what they want the stipend system to look like. There was a suggestion to give an end date. So for an end date to fall, so it will be finalized at the following meeting. I'm open to any end date with the understanding that we're approaching the end of the semester. So what does that end date want to look like? It can look like literally the last meeting, like May 8th. Or
I definitely think that the last possible date would be best. So if that's it.
Okay, so suggestion for by May 8th. Okay, so we need to move into
A motion?
yeah. So a motion needs to be made on this item. I cannot motion.
Okay, I motion to approve the resolution to change or adjust the financial budget.
So I'm a little confused on your motion. I'll go ahead and I'll ask for a motion to approve this item. With the stipulation. I can ask for a motion to approve this item with the stipulations that it be represented to the board on May 8th.
Sure.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Okay.
May 8th is not going to do because that's too late. Let's do the meeting before that. I don't know. Let me see. That's the 25th or 24th. So let's go ahead and put the 24th on there as the date that needs to be presented to us.
So what's happening now?
I amended the resolution to basically say that on the last resolve, it's going to read now that the AS Board of Directors of Humboldt State University requests that the Board of Finance at their next meeting reevaluate the stipend system and draft a proposal for the Board of Directors to finalize at the meeting of April 24th. Okay.
I approve this, the amendment to change the date of the thing to March 28th.
Okay, so I think that motion is out of order. So basically, the motion could be, I'll ask for a motion to approve this resolution with the stipulations of April 24th as being the date that needs to be represented, and I'll ask for a second. I'll ask for a motion. So somebody needs a motion.
I motion to have the resolution approved with the stipulation that it will be presented to the Board of Directors on April 24th.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second from Floyd.
Second from Floyd. Is there any objections or abstentions to this motion passing in this resolution being approved? Seeing none, the motion passes. The resolution is approved. What happened?
Sarah abstained. She
Okay.
a little participant.
One abstention. The resolution passes. Thank you all. And we'll go ahead and keep on moving with business. So next up is new business. We're going to head move into our budget appeals and hearings. So we have until 6/24 to kind of get through all of our budget and appeals, just as that block of time. So if Representative Weinberg could kind of keep tabs on that time for us, 6/24 being the deadline of which we need to keep moving on with business.
Got it.
And we just want to open up time right now for everyone to kind of hear out, well, for the board to hear the appeals and the hearings from all of our programs on the AS budget. Also, I want to take this time to address the previous comment that was made during public comment about our budget and how we are in such uncertain times. And I agree. We are in such uncertain times, and honestly, we're dealt the cards that we have, but that does not mean that we can't build something better. I know a lot of you out there are looking at our budget and it's like, well, what the heck's going on? It doesn't make no sense to have all this, to have these numbers in a way that doesn't necessarily reflect reflect what you do throughout the year. And I just want to reassure and understand and help you all understand that the Board of Directors is looking at this carefully, and we're making sure that we're looking to reconvene with the AS Funded Programs Committee to invite you all in that discussion, so that way we can present a budget as a whole, so that way we can all build something better out of what we have left. Also, too, I just want to thank you all for coming. I know that these meetings aren't necessarily the most ideal, but you all made it out here, and you are all here with such passion for your program, and I thank you all. With that being said, I'll go ahead and shift the discussion over to Janessa or Casey or Student Legal Lounge. Okay, to kind of go ahead and start with their budget appeal. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I can start by saying over here on this side, people who appealed are being heard kind of in the order that they appealed. And so we will start with the Student Legal Lounge, and then the pool, and then Scholars Without Borders, Campus Center for Appropriate Technology, the Women's Resource Center, the Waste Reduction Resource Awareness Program, and then the Eric Rothfuss Multicultural Queer Resource Center. And I think we do have all the representatives on right now. If anybody has some final documents that they'd like to send to Casey at Humboldt.edu, so that I can project them up on your behalf, I can do so. But if you also are okay with just taking your turn in that way, then don't panic to send something over. At this point, I wanted to check, Kim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, great.
Okay, so first I wanted to talk about why we're appealing. So the recommended budget, I believe it was only for $487 for this next year, and our old budget was for $4,207. What we are actually hoping to get is to employ 4 essential employees, and so we're asking for actually a total of that is not on there. Sorry, let me pull this up.
Yeah, there seems to be some kind of transfer problem with the PowerPoint here.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. I can just talk through it. So it seems as though when I was looking back at why we were only getting recommended that amount, it's because we didn't really fully understand the application. So I sent Casey our updated application, which we're appealing for $14,964. And that is to employ 4 essential employees, which would be the director, the co-director, the technology director, and the outreach coordinator. And this year we only had a budget for two seats or 2 positions, which were the director and co-director, but we had to bring more people on as paid positions to expand the lounge, which we have done a really amazing job in doing. The lounge has progressed so much in the last term alone, and almost every office hour we have students coming in with legal inquiries, so our resource center is being utilized, and it's a really important resource center for a lot of students. And so the total that we are most worried about is $14,040, which would just be to employ the 4 students, the 4 positions, and we think this is the most important thing because the lounge, the services that we provide are services to navigate the legal system, and the legal system in Humboldt County is really hard to navigate. So the amount of time that it takes us to work to create connections with the attorneys around campus, around the community, and then the different resources on campus, the different resources within the community, that has taken a lot of work, and a lot of the time that myself and Hannah have even put in for this term have been completely voluntary, and a lot of the students who are working now are doing it voluntarily, but we think that these positions especially need a more focused and a more reliable place in the lounge, or a more stable employment within the lounge for the lounge to be able to succeed and thrive. So there's also some money that we were asking for printing, paper materials, graphic charges, which would be different promotional items, and then there are 3 different events that we put on there, where we were asking for basically just catering for Chief Justice Abenanti to bring her back up here for another expungement workshop with Root and Rebound, because both of those events where we had both of those people were really successful this last term. And then we were also we were asking for catering and like wages for a third event, which would be a Know Your Rights workshop, which would be tailored specifically to student need. And our outreach coordinator would do that work to survey the student body to see what issues were most important. But yeah, I think that's basically all.
Okay. Thank you, Kimberly. That was wonderful, wonderful presentation. I did forget to mention at the beginning of the introduction. So we'll have 5 minutes for each presentation and about 2 minutes for questions afterwards. So that way we can have time and budget time for everybody to kind of get in and say their reasonings behind appealing and hearing, and so that way the board can get a understanding with the time limits that we're constrained to. So we'll go ahead and have 5 minutes for presentation and 2 minutes for questions afterwards, resulting in about a total of 7 minutes per appeal / hearing. So thank you so much. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions. 2 minutes for questions. Okay, so seeing that there's no questions for this appeal / hearing, I'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next hearing / appeal, which is, sorry, let me get this share screen.
KRA pool, I believe Justus.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, this is Justus Ortega. I'm chair of the Department of Kinesiology Rec Administration, and we essentially help to run the pool and the pool hours, the open pool hours. For those who aren't familiar with the pool and in relationship to the AAS funds, the funds specifically through AAS pay for student employment for particularly lifeguards and supervision of the pool during open rec swim hours. Currently, over the last year alone, we served about 5,200 students over the course of the year coming in to the pool hours. And that was that was essentially accommodating about 35 hours per week of pool time for those open swim hours. With the new revisions to the budget, and I can absolutely appreciate these, how you've dealt with this budget in these strenuous times and really not knowing what's going to happen next year, if there will even be this much money in the budget. But with the current allocation, it would reduce the pool time, open pool for students by about 22%. So based on the current budget, we'd go from 35 hours to, it would be about 25 hours total time that we could have the pool open for students in that regard. So the appeal is really, and I understand there's every program that I see that you fund here is extremely important to our campus and our community of students. And it's hard to justify one more than another in this regard. And I think everyone's, you know, sort of, we all wish we had more to give, I think, in this regard. But a small increase certainly in the funding could go a long way, given that essentially our department has, in our own commitment, has fully funded the pool supervision, the pool supervisor, all the maintenance of the pool during this time to offset the cost to AS. Otherwise, the cost would be a lot higher. But really, this will simply, if we do not receive any additional funds through AS, it'll simply affect the students employed there and the open hours to students.
Thank you, Justice, for that presentation on the pool, on the drop-in rec for the pool. Are there any, at this time, are there any questions for Justice and his program? I see a raised hand from Daniel.
Yeah, hi. My question is there busy times for the pool and I guess not so busy for the pool?
So generally speaking, I would say that,
And
oh,
if and then second question is, if the requested budget amount that you had requested does not go through, will just be less busy times be affected?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the end of that last question. You cut out.
Will cutting the budget for the open pool hours affect busy times for the pool as well as less busy times?
Yes, well, yeah, it definitely will. I mean, during the week, the pool is very busy, whether it's the morning swim, the midday swim, or the afternoon swim. It seems like just about every lane is full, usually 2 people to a lane in that regard. The weekend, I think, initially will be where we're looking at cutting on the weekend, which for students in many ways is a bummer. Because if you don't have anything else to do on the weekends, it's nice to be able to access the pool like you would the rec center or any of the other recreational spots. We could look at trying to distribute the reductions in time across the entire week and see how that would probably be our initial strategy, so that we don't completely eliminate time on the weekend. But yeah, it'll affect both what I would say the less busier times and as well as the more busy times.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for that question. Thank you, Justus, for answering. Is there any more questions at this time? Or are there any more questions at this time? Okay, I'm looking on the participants list. I don't see any more raised hands, and I'm not hearing a verbal questions being raised. So I'll go ahead and move on and ask for the next program to present their appeal/hearing or appeal.
Scholars Without Borders is next. And I
Yeah,
believe
so
Izzie?
yeah, it's me and Eileen, and then you have our PDF. Okay, so our budget, we're asking 8,866 more for next year's budget, and just overall we're asking for over 29 grand. Five grand would be allocated for the educational award, and the educational award we give priority to undocumented, documented AB 540 students to because DACA renewals can be quite expensive, and so the financial burden is taken off of students, and then undocumented students don't receive financial aid, and so the $500 that we give as part of the educational award is something that we simply cannot afford to lose, especially now that you can only reapply for DACA, and the incoming wave of students are undocumented and or AB 540 students. And so with that being said, the adding on to the 8 grand would be Undocu Week. It's an additional 1,390, and we were able to pull it off this semester because our original budget was 1,000, and Defined American Club provided an extra 1,000 to our budget. And then we also, obviously, Undocu Week is a week long, and so the additional funds would definitely be useful. Then the anniversary, we did $200 as far as catering, just because it's important to acknowledge that what student efforts have been made to get SWB started, and we don't want to lose that knowledge of where SWB came from. And we also want to have students just continue to have a sense of community within our anniversary. And then wages was what we kind of added on a little more to our budget, and that we asked for an additional a little over 7 grand because last semester we hired one more person, and then this semester we added yet another person to our team. So that went from having 3 people to 5 people within Scholars Without Borders. And we were able to have someone just have complete focus on like social media, scholarships, website, and another person to like work with UndocuWeek. And then given that Chirla is now incorporated into our CSU system, a lot of more students are coming in to ask for our resources because Chirla could not fulfill like all of our student needs. And then we wanted to add 100 for supplies, just as far as like workshops and or the office, such as like our t-shirt printing and supplies to make pins. And that's about it. Eileen, do you want to add something?
I do not. Thank you.
So any questions?
Let me check the participants list. I'm not seeing any questions being raised at this time. Thank you so much, Izzie, for that presentation and for opening it up for questions. We do appreciate you coming and giving that appeal to us. Also, we can hear out what would be ideal for SWV.
Okay, thank you.
So at this time, seeing no more questions, I'll go ahead and move on and ask for the next program to appeal. This is the Student Legal Lounge, or I'm sorry. Is it CCAT? Okay.
Yes. Hello. Hi, my name is Justin Hawkins. I'm here with Michael Perez. We're 2 of the 3 co-directors at CCAT.
Hello.
Before we start, I'd really like to emphasize that CCAT is a sanctuary for non-traditional learners. Here, we're able to emphasize experiential education and allow students to get hands-on experience. Currently on the screen, this was our proposed budget. We are able to offer some pretty amazing programming because of our tight-knit family with 7 employees and 6 interns. This includes the community garden, pigs, class workshops, like Volunteer Friday with free food. Next slide, please. Casey? Oh, thank you. Cool. And here I just really want to point out that so we are able to shift our teachers' pay over to the IRS budget. And so right now our budget is predominantly employee wages. The upkeep is fixed costs. And so like all other programs, we're talking about people's jobs here. And people like Clara Hernandez, who was nominated earlier for Earth Week Every Week, is like just an outstanding example of what HSU has here to offer. We're able to provide flexible schedules, professional development for them, and more importantly, community to support them through their academic environments. All right, next slide, please. And so with the recommended budget, we would be down to a single 1 or 2 employees. We would have to cut most programming and probably consolidate down to just Volunteer Fridays without the free food. And so this would bring down our service reach down from like over 1,000 students to roughly 500. This is a rough estimate. And I'd just like to emphasize here that the 3 co-directors are managing a 2-story, 3-bedroom house on this budget. And without our employees, we would be overwhelmed with maintenance and upkeep of the physical grounds of the program itself. Next slide, please. And so this is an example of a compromise and what we're hoping to achieve. Understandably, there's going to be cuts. And with our high investment projects such as the community garden and pigs, and probably reduced classes and workshops. But with only 4 employees, it would really greatly expand our capacity to provide services for HSU. Next slide, please. Great, and these are just some photos. Like students get vital hands-on experience here that they do not get outside of the classroom. And the cut in the budget would really severely reduce the programs we're able to offer. Next slide, please. These are students. They're outdoors. They're getting a tour and educational from our gardener, Sebastian Forward, one of our student employees. Next slide. And then CCAT also operates as a community hub for not just HSU, but the larger community as well, and like an interface between those two things, which is like really important in terms of community resiliency, especially in times of increasing peril. Oh, okay, cool. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Michael Perez now.
Hello. When we look at HSU's mission statement, we see the institution seeks for equity and empowerment by striving for social and environmental justice, and by developing students into organizers and leaders. These goals are shared by CCAT, and every day we are actively embodying them. CCAT is a staple to providing thousands of students education on sustainability. Over time, we've become essential to the collaborative effort of implementing HSU's sustainability goals. And it's been our honor to be able to serve as co-directors here at CCAT, and it would be our honor to continue to do so. And we greatly appreciate all of your times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for that presentation. That was a great presentation given. And I thank you also. I also thank you for coming and presenting this appeal to us, and so that way you can give the board a chance to hear what would be ideal for CCAT. That being said, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. At this time, if there's any questions for CCAT, I'll go ahead and look at the participants list, look for raised hands, as well as listen out for verbal confirmation about those questions. Are there any questions? Okay, I see one hand raised from Will.
Thank you so much for basically everything Jeremiah said, and especially for trying to compromise and have an alternative for us. I was wondering if you guys knew how much the free food at every volunteer day costs. Does that have, is it a high number? Is it a low number? Just because it's a lot of food every week for 16 weeks or so. Because, I mean, I understand that it's a good way to get people to show up, but it seems like the low-hanging fruit at this point.
So that question was directed towards.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, the unmute button wasn't working. Yeah, so just to clarify, due to, I don't want to say legality or technicalities surrounding AS funding, the food provided at Volunteer Fridays is not paid for using our AS budget. It's using our trust fund. It's a combination of trust funds, volunteer labor, and also donations from community partners. Does that clarify?
Yes, but it doesn't really hit on the amount. I guess it's not AS funding, but it is funding that you use that could be at least allocated somewhere else. If you were to not, you know, does that make sense? It probably doesn't, but.
Answer that, Will.
If I can.
So
go ahead.
Right now, the money being used to pay for the food is not AS through AS, but with these cuts, we would have to divert that money that would go to AS through other things like maintenance, upkeep, and employee payment.
Exactly. That was what I was asking, was for the number tied to that to see if it was substantial or not.
We can provide that at a later time.
Yeah, we don't have specific numbers on the amount of money we're spending on food. Likewise, it's sort of a complicated mix of donations, trust funds, and then occasional out-of-pocket expenses of the CCAT co-directors.
And also what's grown there.
If I can, I do want to thank the CCAT presenters for presenting all this data for us. I know these are strange times, and we may not always be able to access the things that we need to access at the times. I thank Will for his questioning, because that was an excellent question. And I also believe, I think this could be probably expanded on later on in that, again, that the AS funded programs meetings or committee meetings. I'm pretty sure that we probably can get in touch with somebody who can kind of direct you towards that, so that we can get a bigger picture or more understanding picture about what that looks like in regards to CCAT. But I do want to thank you both, and I do want to move on with our next presentations, if that's okay with the group. Okay, I'm not seeing seeing or hearing any objections. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next presentation, which is the Women's Resource Center.
Hey, what's up? This is Deema here. Izzie is also representing the WRC with me as well. What's up, Janessa? What's up, Casey? Hi, Yeki. Okay, so we also shared this doc with Casey. So basically, we're asking for 10,000 more than the proposed budget for the upcoming year, $1,000 extra for menstrual products. We were able to manage this year because Eboni, the Dean of students, gave us $1,000 extra. And then we barely had enough hours to keep the WRC open for more than 4 hours a day. On some days, the WRC office hours range from 4 hours to 7 hours, depending on the day. Most of the time, it was open because we were just doing volunteer hours. There hadn't been allocated wages for much work outside of these hours, hence 4,000 extra for wages, 3,000 for collaboration, 2,000 in wages allocated for specific events so that the WRC staff aren't working all day and without getting compensated and just being like doing volunteer hours. And then the proposed budget was 24,000. To an adjusted budget, we're asking for 34,000, at least cover the minimal gaps for last year's budget of 29,000 that was not adequate in supporting WRC staff and wages to hold office hours, table at community events, and do intense collaborative work around across campus. And then a possible solution would be that there's over $5,000 after wages throughout this year that will likely not be used from supplies funds allocated for the WRC for the 2019-2020 year, which can and should be allocated to our next year's budget. Next year, the reconstructing programs can be prioritized to help shift into the changing nature of the budget, but minimal needs of the WRC functioning must be met at least. And then some other concerns we just put at the bottom where students across campus need to get paid. And then also like if AS can ensure this because y'all are for the students. And then we just added how AS students are at-will employees and individuals that deserve respect, and each program should be entitled to their own hiring and firing processes. At the very least, there must be work done in order for there to be more required transparency between AS representatives and programs themselves. There we go.
We're finished.
Okay, thank you so much, Deema and Izzie, for those presentations. I appreciate that a lot, and I think the board appreciates it as well. Trying to hear out what Women's Resource Center needs to be optimal and function optimally. I believe that these conversations could probably be expanded on in those AS-funded program committee meetings again. I want to stress that, but I do want to open it up for questions for people to come in and ask, for the board members to ask questions about what about the appeal, about the Women's Resource Center that could be answered by Deema or Izzie. I'm looking for hands raised and or verbal confirmations for those questions. I see a hand raise from Will and from Gabrielle, so we'll go ahead and go Weinberg, then Smith.
Could you go back to the bottom of that page, Casey? I guess this is actually more of a question for us as a board. Are we able to earmark money that was allocated but not spent to a program specifically? Can we earmark like that? I don't remember if we can.
There will be opportunity for funded areas. It's a different part in our fiscal code, and it's not typically done at the same time as budget applications, but with the current circumstances changing, and with some programming not being able to be held in its original capacity in person, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed, but it's not typically done at the same time. but should be acknowledged like in this budget process.
Thank you for that, Casey.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll go ahead and move on to Smith. Weinberg, if your question was answered.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much, Deema and Izzie, for advocating for the Women's Resource Center. I think it's extremely important. And that being that too often women aren't accounted for and appreciated and supported in the ways that need to be, especially in their reproductive systems. How do you see that the school would suffer given that these funds aren't allocated?
Well, the question isn't like whether or not they're gonna, like, we have a grant dedicated for menstrual products. We actually just finished, aside from that, we do get a donation. So we were able to get Diva cups, and they ran out completely. We are definitely in need. I know some people obviously don't go to class because of their menstruation. And so providing menstruation products in the restrooms are definitely needed. And so we will still have 1,000 to do, but our products, I don't know if anybody has ever gone to use those, the menstruation products, they go within the week that we put them up. And so we need to have more funds allocated to provide our resources. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Smith, for that question and that elaboration. I think that was wonderful and well put. Thank you, Izzie, for that answer. I think that's great. That we can try to figure out some way to accommodate that and alleviate that stress is really important. I think that's something that we as an organization, we're trying to look forward to building upon. So I did see, Izzie, that you had your hand raised. I don't know if you had anything more to add to the discussion or if you got it all out in that last one.
Oh, my comment was a lot more to do with kind of the rollover of our funds, because we do have Take Back the Night that we didn't fully do and haven't done. And then we also have History Month, and our products we put in the order, but they weren't ever put in like for us to get them. And so we do have a couple grand for those that we have not used. And so it's important to note that we should still have those like funds, because they're one of the weeks where we get like a lot of people, and a lot of the Women's Resource Center, that's one of our biggest events, is the not so much History Month, but we do want to emphasize History Month. But we do want to obviously have Take Back the Night, which is one of the biggest events we have during the semester. And it's not going to be fulfilled because of what's going on.
Yeah, it is. These are some unfortunate times. You know, a lot of us had programs planned for this upcoming, for the rest of the semester, especially for History Month. And they were all such important events, and we're trying to figure out a way to move forward from here. But thank you, Izzie, for that. And thank you all. So we'll go ahead now, since we are out of time for this application. If that's okay with the group, we'll go ahead and keep moving forward with the next appeal. This appeal is from RAP. I believe, is this Amanda giving this presentation or?
Yeah, hi Jeremiah.
Okay. Hey.
Is having our video on part of the rules of this program, or?
So you can have, the aim was to make sure that we could have enough bandwidth for everybody to kind of join, because it's like 36 people on. But if you feel like it would be probably better or more for you, or more comfortable for you to have your video on, that's completely up to you.
I just want to say hi to everybody, because I feel like it's a little bit more personal, or as personal as we could get if we could see each other's faces and see our body language. And kind of empathize with each other in these hard times. So my name is Amanda, and I'm the program manager for the Waste Reduction and Resource Awareness Program. And I'm joined today by 3 of our 5 branch directors. Julian, Rachel, and Skylar are all here with us today. Is the presentation being shown, Casey?
Sorry, I can show it again, but for you to be able to see everybody's faces, I believe, I was giving you space, but I'll share it again.
Okay. It just has it so much more straightforward for everyone to see. Okay. So we're the Waste Reduction Program. We started in 1987 as the Campus Recycling Program that emerged out of AS. And today we're a very big program. We're 5 branches, and we serve a lot of students throughout the school year. We're asking to keep our budget the same that we had it allocated as 2019-2020. We requested our funds to go up for student wages, and we reduced our supplies and services budget. But as in attempts to compromise with all of the programs that are receiving budget cuts, we're hoping that AS can consider awarding us the $46,000 that we're awarded in 2019-2020. And I'd like to share kind of like what our program provides, because we are 5 different branches that serve a lot of different students. And I wanted to point it to our logo, our beautiful logo that was made last semester. It encompasses all 5 branches: the Bicycle Learning Center, compost, education, the reusable office supply exchange, and zero waste. So if we could get to the next slide, Casey.
Can do.
Thank you. The Bicycle Learning Center was absorbed into the Waste Reduction Program in efforts to, further our mission to provide resources for students and the campus community to encourage alternative perspectives on consumption and reducing kind of like our footprint on the earth. Julian, I'd like to invite you to say something about your position with the Bicycle Learning Center and what the Bicycle Learning Center serves to students.
Sure, thanks Amanda, and thanks everyone. I also wanted to start by echoing Justus's words about the importance of all of these programs, and just recognizing the challenge that we have to allocate limited funds for unlimited possibilities. So I've had the opportunity to direct the Bicycle Learning Center in the last year, and it's been great to see how much it can serve the students. Sorry. We just have a couple slides here talking about our metrics and what we provide to students. And the next slide includes some testimonials. It's too much to go over, and people rarely give us written testimonials, but just right away with materials to keep their bikes safe and the knowledge to ride them safely. And there's also too many reasons to go into about why this is good for the campus community. We were hoping to expand the student employment to have more hours to share with students. And this club has been running for about 28 years. It started as an all-volunteer effort. And although it was a tenacious endeavor, it ended up falling apart in 2015 and was brought back as a club and finally is funded. And with that funding, we've been able to make a lot of improvements. And with a stable allocation for continued instructors and development, I think that it's going to grow to serve the community a lot more in the next few years.
Thanks, Jules. And so that's just one asset of the waste reduction program. The next branch is the compost branch, which provides the opportunity for different departments on campus to compost their food waste and ultimately reduce their footprint. The metrics are there, and I think the pictures speak louder than words. This is all about student employment, and RAP really provides valuable professional development to students who are interested entering some realm of the environmental sector when they graduate from HSU. And I think that our program just contributes so much to the culture at HSU, and to see it not be funded to its potential to serve students would be really heartbreaking to the culture of HSU in these hard times. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. The education branch is an internally operating branch where we have 2 directors that facilitate some really big events on campus, specifically when students come to campus and when they leave campus. The waste reduction program is there facilitating some dialogue with students about their consumption patterns when they are living at HSU and living up here on the North Coast. Our biggest event being Donation Dash, which was cut short this year, which is really, really sad to all of us. And seeing kind of the immense amount of trash coming out of the dormitories right now as students move out in this hiatus. And the fact that we can't be there, you know, sorting the trash really, really breaks my heart. And so in the past couple of years, we've diverted, last year was 10 tons of donatable goods and compost from the landfill. And the year before that, 13 tons, the year before that, 12 tons. And it's really humbling work to get to do with the student body. So that's the education branch. And if we could get to the next slide. The reusable office supply exchange. I hope all of you who are sitting in this meeting and that are students have used this resource. It's the oldest asset of RAP that was a part of the campus recycling program and efforts to reduce carbon footprint and encourage perspectives on consumption. The reusable office supply exchange gives away free school supplies to students. And we estimate that we save students around $17,000 a year collectively as our campus community. And it's a really hard struggle to keep the Rose house clean and organized. And we need those student positions to do that. It's okay, we could go to the next slide in the entrance of time. We're a big program and we serve a lot of students and we do a lot of different multifaceted projects, and the Zero Waste branch hosts events and just continues that dialogue for students to consider their consumption. I wanted to just mention how in conceiving of like a whole, you know, AS solution to like how we're gonna mitigate this hard decision for budgets. I wanted to pose how can we better share supplies between AS programs? In an earlier presentation, someone was mentioning they're requesting supplies for like making pens and making t-shirts and doing stuff to that nature. And I think there can be a much better hub of collaboration between AS programs, because some of us, like the waste reduction program and CCAT, have a lot of those kind of supplies that we can better, if we're set up somehow better, to just share those resources, almost like the concept of mutual aid, but for our resources and our supplies. So that was just something I wanted to pose as a solution to all this madness. The next slide has testimonies of students who use RAP as a resource. I don't know how I'm doing on time at 1 minute.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you so much, Amanda. This is a well put together presentation, and these are some awesome programs like Janessa had said. We do appreciate you and Julian coming here today to kind of present what RAP does and how it benefits and impacts HSU students and the campus in general. I love that idea about how to collaborate between AS programs and sharing ideas. I think that's incredible. We are kind of out of time for questions.
Yeah, that's okay.
No worries at all. So we'll go ahead and just identify that your program does amazing stuff, and that we're all together trying to figure out ways on how to benefit and how to keep this process moving with the resources that we do have left available to us due to externalities that we have no control over.
Yes.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and keep moving on to our next program. This program is ERC, the Eric Office Multicultural Center. I think this.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Hey, so I'm Amanda. I'm from the Eric Rofez Multicultural Queer Resource Center. Max and Lex and Blue are also here. And we just wanted to share, because we are the only resource center for queer students on our campus. So if you go to the next slide, right now we're operating around a $20,000 budget. And so we're asking to at least maintain this current budget, and we're requesting an increase of $10,000 to our budget. So if you go to the next slide, so we put on events and workshops, and we're also the only resource for students to access like queer resources and support. And so we're very much providing for the mental well-being and the health of students on this campus. And without our current budget, we couldn't even put on the amount of events that we currently have going. But our goal is to ultimately to expand these resources we offer, and in turn, expand the amount of students that we can serve. And so this is just an example of how many staff hours really go into one big event. So as you can see, it's a lot of work, and it's one of the biggest limiting factors that we have to running the ERC. Yeah, and so if you just go to the next slide, perfect. We also have our weekly ongoings, like office hours that we also use for event planning, but like weekly things like Q Talks and our like sexual identity support group, and these things add up. Oh, and if you go to the next slide, we also just want to acknowledge that our building is condemned. And I think our plan was to move this summer. I don't know what the timetable is going to look like for that now, but we do need to move, and that also does cost money. And there are just a lot of things that we would like to do to make this space more accessible, and to make it comfortable and feel like a safe space. And we need funds to be able to do that. So if you go to the next slide, in conclusion, we're already kind of operating under a limited budget. I know we all kind of are, but we're collaborating as much as we can, and we want to continue to do that and pool our resources as effectively as possible. But we also need just the budget to be able to sustain the staff hours that are going into our current programming.
Can I also add something, Amanda?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes. So I also wanted to add that for the ERC, we started off, I think, in 2008 with 3 students operating under a budget of $500. And as we've gone and progressed over the years, we've only grown more, but it is still, we still operate under 4 people throwing all of these events, and we collaborate as much as we can, but we still need a budget that can sustain the work that we do and all the events that we put together. And I know for the 4 of us, this is a full-time job, or it feels like, and we just need something to pay the bills as well, because we are students, and I believe we all live off campus. So just having a budget that can sustain the work that we do and the lives that we also live. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I believe that's it.
Okay, I just didn't want to jump in before it was all the way over. Thank you both for that presentation. We appreciate you coming. Like Janessa was saying, in regards to your other comment, AS is currently working on trying to explore new options on where we are located and new spaces for us. That's something that Cano Sanchez was really focused on doing and focus on making come to fruition. And so also, like she said, I would encourage as well that those conversations be carried out in the AS Funded Programs Committee, because as we've noticed and as we've seen, it's kind of hard to get everything out in one 5-minute blurb about what your program is and what your program does. So that being said, I'll go ahead right now and ask for questions for the board of directors to kind of give them time to kind of digest and ask questions about ERC and what they would like to know more about. So I'm not seeing any questions, any raised hands or any verbal confirmations. So I'll go ahead and just say, oh, Lizbeth.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification. You said that ERC has been functioning since 2008?
Yes.
Okay. And another one is, have you all received some sort of deadline about moving out from the space you're currently occupying?
I don't know if we've received an official deadline, but the plan was to have facilities move us this summer.
Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for those questions. Is there any more questions from the board for ERC at this time? Okay, seeing none, I just want to go ahead and go on and wrap this item up. Thank you all so much for, thank you all so much for coming and presenting to us. This is a wonderful discussion. I think the board had an opportunity to kind of get some groundwork, foundational information about what our programs kind of do, what they are, what they want to be next year, and what they need to function at optimum. And I appreciate each program and each program director coming today to kind of give us this front load of information for us. I would encourage that these conversations be expanded more on in the AS Funded Programs Committee. You all should be getting contacted about that from Janessa or Casey or Lizbeth about where to move about when that meeting will occur, because I think these are some great conversations. That being said, I don't want to hold you all here. So if you need to do anything else for the rest of your day, please feel free to go and do that. If not, we welcome you and we want to keep you here. So next up, though, we'll keep on moving on to the proposal to adjust the 2020 elections dates and requirements. This is an action item.
Sorry, Jeremiah?
Yes.
I just wanted to check if anyone from AdPick, OSNAP, or the Veterans Outdoor Program showed up and would like to speak on behalf of their request. Okay, then hearing none, then please full steam ahead.
So, Casey, I did have a question. Do we need to, since this is an action item, do we need to make an action to defer this to the Funded Programs Committee?
There could be a motion to refer to the committee, but more so, this is an opportunity and will be a standing business item for the board of directors. And so at this time, the board could, I would flip back to this other screen and there could be propositions made to this recommended column. And if any recommendations are altered, we would then send out the new recommendation to all the applicants and say, hey, the recommended budget has been adjusted again. Please let us know if you'd like to appeal at the next board of directors meeting. And we can basically go through this, this kind of recommend and appeal cycle until everyone has felt heard and within our timeline of getting it to the president as a recommendation by like May 1st, I believe. Okay.
So I see what you're saying. So right now, board members could possibly look at the recommended budget budget that we currently have, and motion second and move some items around or move numbers up and down.
Correct.
Okay. So right now I do want to know that I scheduled us to end at 6:24. We're at 6:21 right now, but if that conversation wants to be had right here, right now, I'm okay with extending the time. I think we have ample time to get through the rest of our agenda if we want to kind of explore those options and figure out what would be optimal or best for AS as an organization. And when I say AS as an organization, I'm including our AS funded programs as well, because we are all in this kind of together, trying to build something better. Okay.
In that space, I'd like to reassure everybody that at the next board meeting, this will also be an actionable item for adjustment, and it would it'd be perfectly acceptable to take these appeals and more information and spend the next 2 weeks really kind of generating some motions so that at the next meeting on the 10th, some recommendations can be made. And at that point, we can then call for like a second round of appeals again. Just want to reassure that we do have, you know, kind of a meeting's worth of time to digest.
Yes, thank you so much, Casey, for adding that on there. So if there is no motions or appeals being made at this time, I think this item would automatically get tabled until next item as a standing item. And we'll just keep on moving forward with the rest of the meeting. If there is no objections, and I would look for some verbal objections if there's any. Okay, so no objections. We'll go ahead and keep moving forward, and I think this item will be tabled until next meeting. And during this time, we'll be able to kind of go through, create some motions that should be made, and just create something better for us. All right, so next up is proposal to adjust the 2020 elections date and requirements. This is an action item. The addendum states, in response to the current COVID-19 situation, the board will receive a presentation on the proposed adjustments to the 2020 elections timeline and requirements. The proposal is for one-time adjustments, extension of the filing period, waiver of the petition requirement for filing, expansion of the voting period from 3 to 5 days, and a shift of the voting period from April 14th to 16th to April 27th to May 1st. I believe this presentation is given either by the elections commissioner or the board coordinator.
Yes, and I'll yield to Cassie after I can kind of go through this elections code, as much of this happened at the, much of this thought started through spring break, which you are all on academic breaks at that time. I'll admit, just kind of needing to work through some things. I took a point on this, but hoping that after this proposal is potentially and hopefully approved, that Cassie as elections commissioner can fully take on these kinds of duties again. But we have been having meetings and consulting, and so what I have on the screen right now is the Associated Students Elections Code. And I have annotated, I hope you can see down the side. Jeremiah, maybe you could provide verbal confirmation on these notes over here. Well, I'm hoping that everyone can see them on this side. So just noting the description summarizes what needs to happen, but I've—
All right, yes, I can see them. I didn't realize I was muted.
Okay, awesome, thank you, sorry. Yeah, just feeling nervous about screen sharing. So our section 1 of the elections code is about purpose and authority, and section 1.04, all elections must be held no sooner than 3 weeks into the semester and no later than 2 weeks prior to the end of the semester. Our new proposed dates of April 27th through May 1st do fit within this requirement still, so that's awesome. You'll note that there's a recommendation later on, but it's a recommended item, that they should happen more like 4 weeks, just so that there can be, I think it's a transitional recommendation. 1.05, the results of the AS election shall be unofficial until ratified. This will still be able to be accomplished with this new proposed dates for holding the elections. May 1st, we will still have time to convene the Elections Commission to recommend ratified results to the Board of Directors by the May 8th meeting. I will be skipping over sections that don't need to be adjusted or talked about in this proposal. So The Elections Commission's powers and duties are not changing. They're still the main force that will help make sure elections are run cleanly. We now have our third member now that Vincent Thomas was appointed. Section 4, election staff unaffected. The minimum qualifications will be maintained. The general elections filing for candidacy is where a lot of these changes are being proposed. So this section 6.01, candidates must appear in person to obtain their nomination materials at the AS Business Office. That can no longer happen as we are socially distant and not going onto campus for safety and health reasons, correct? So this requirement needs to be waived. The in-person requirements, and 6.02, at the time nomination materials are filed, the candidate shall also file a signed statement indicating the candidate's understanding. You'll note that a lot of these are going to be asking for a waiver of like the wet signature requirement. If you're familiar with payroll processes, wet signature just means like the in-person signature. And I'm hoping that the board will approve of a Google form that acknowledges all of those different elections contracts, which you can see are laid out in 6.02. It's basically acknowledging that the candidate received all the elections materials. So I'm going to be asking that a Google form and an acknowledgement box checked by HSU email will be approved instead of a wet signature. In addition, the waiver of the requirement for petitions, as these petitions for candidacy require students to get between 50 and 150 other students to sign it. We can't have in-person signatures. There's not avenues for people to collect like quad talks or campus events. And so just logistically and for safety reasons, we should waive the requirement of all petitions. At 6.15, there shall be a candidates orientation meeting called by the elections commissioner within 2 instructional days. We're still going to be able to do this. The new proposition is that those dates are April 16th and April 17th, and that we'd be able to hold them via Zoom. 6.16, all candidates must attend the mandatory candidates orientation meeting. At the conclusion of the orientation meeting, the candidate shall sign a statement that he or she has read fully and fully understands all provisions. So this is another one of those acknowledgement requirements. And I'm hoping that through that kind of e-elections agreement, that Google form I described above, I'm hoping that a similar tactic can be implemented and signatures can be a Google form checkbox instead. Moving into section 7 for write-in candidates filing for candidacy, the proposal here to adjust would be to propose it be Thursday, April 23rd. This 7.01 advocates that write-in candidates can be implemented up until the Friday before the general election. And as those typical general elections start on Tuesday, my recommendation is just to move this requirement up to the Thursday before the new date of April 27th. On to 7.02, at the time nomination materials are filed, the write-in candidate shall also file a signed signature. Again, this is that Google form taking the place of handwritten signatures. If I'm not incorrect, I believe those, in section 12 of our general elections part of the elections code, this is summarized in the agenda's description, but the voting period is being advocated to be midnight on Monday, April 27th to 11:59 of that Friday. So we're looking at, yes, April 27th to May 1st, midnight to midnight, essentially. The recommendation to increase the amount of days was just because we're getting a lot of online communications right now, and potentially widening the elections period from 3 days to 5 days will just give more opportunity for the electorate to find that in their emails, and we'll be able to do more publicity for a longer amount of time and hopefully yield more participation in elections. Here is where I've noted that the dates for general elections, it is recommended that the general elections be held no later than 4 weeks prior to the end of the semester. but I'm calling this out as this is just a recommendation and not a requirement. On the ballot, a sample ballot must be printed in the campus newspaper no later than the issue immediately preceding the general runoff or special election. At the last board meeting, I did kind of preface you all with these adjustments and said that it's likely that we wouldn't be able to get anything printed. However, the Lumberjack is going to try and print an April edition, and we are working with them to push the date towards April 20th so that we can get a full sample ballot printed. And the plan on their end, which is incredibly awesome, is to send an edition of the Lumberjack to everybody's homes. And so that would put the elections ballot directly into every single one of our students' hands. And so I wanted to point that out as a plus, something that is going to happen. That is the end of the annotated notes. This description does succinctly say everything that needs to happen. And I would suggest that if a motion were to be made to approve or deny this, that they would include this annotated elections code, as it does have some of the more specifics outside of just the description here on the agenda.
Thank you, Casey, for that wonderful presentation. If the election commissioner has anything to add.
Yes. Hi, everyone. It's nice to hear everybody again. I did want to just reiterate why the postponement of 2 weeks would help not only our professional staff, the Elections Commission, but also students. It allows for professional staff and the Elections Commission to promote elections a bit longer, so that way we raise our chances of having candidates for each position, because at the moment we don't have a candidate for every single position that is able to be elected. So getting these 2 weeks added on to our elections timeline allows for us to possibly get more students to apply and file for candidacy, so that way when we do our elections, there's at least one person elected for every single position. So that way, when we come to the fall semester, we have a full board of directors and we don't have to worry about meeting quorum or having to get those additional members added on at the very last minute. Not only that, but it also allows students themselves to have an additional 2 weeks to apply for candidacy. Given the circumstances that we're all currently in, many students, including ourselves, have been displaced within the last 2 weeks. We've spent the last 2 weeks moving around, getting technology to do online classes, and just learning in general how to conduct our classes online, since none of us were expecting that entire switcheroo. In general, postponing elections for 2 weeks allows everyone to have a fair and equitable chance at running, keeping in mind that the situation we're all in and how much added stress we've all been faced with as students and as human beings. We want as many students to get the chance to run and to be a part of Associated Students, and adding these 2 weeks would really help everyone do that.
Thank you, Elections Commissioner Caldillo. I'll go ahead and now ask, open this up to the board and ask for questions, comments, concerns about this proposal. If there are any, I'll look for raised hands and verbal confirmations. Okay, one from Cano Sanchez.
I think I missed it at the beginning, but has the date for when the packets are due changed?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, I think I did skim over it, and that does need to be clear, and the proposal is for April 16th. Excuse me.
Okay. So I heard some things in your presentation that I do want to clarify. So even if the board we did not have a fully elected board for next semester, we would not have to worry necessarily about quorum, as quorum is determined by the amount of people you have on the board. not necessarily quorum being, we need 15 people, we need 10 people to be elected in order to meet. It's determined on how many people who are on the board currently. Like before Daniel was here, the quorum was lower. Then when Daniel was appointed, quorum went up. So just clarification on that. And also too, I'm a little curious. The goal is to provide an equitable election, correct?
Of course.
Okay. The goal is to provide an equitable election. I'm worried about the candidates who are running for elections currently right now, and them having to figure out ways on how to basically pivot the elections date and things like that. Because like what I've noticed in elections is like what happens is during times of great stress, people are not caring about elections that much anyways. And then once you put it back and push it back, the students who were interested or who were looking forward, like to voting at that specific time, then them having to remember a different date, I think that ultimately drives down election turnout. And if the goal is to have an equitable election, how is that equitable for the candidates who did file on time, my air quotes, and things like that? I'm curious.
So I can't raise my hand. Janessa here. We do have students who have verbally contacted us throughout the past few weeks, come into the office and whatnot. And they, just like Cassie said, for various reasons, if they had to move, if just for various reasons, they weren't able to follow through on that. So I feel that we do have knowledge of students who just hadn't gotten through to that piece yet before our office had to close down. So while that's not necessarily people who already picked up their packets, that's great. I think in the past you've talked about people who might have already invested in things that had the previous dates on it. I'd probably pivot your question that direction about potential reimbursements or something if somebody is out money for something they can no longer use if these dates get changed.
Okay, thank you for bringing up that point. I was getting to that point as well. Because students did have to pay for things like that with the certain elections date times on them. So how can those students be reimbursed? But I also want to say, like, these are some great students that are coming and asking these great questions. However, I'm also worried that we're opening this up so broad and so wide. If the goal is to make sure that we have elected people, and those people who are super interested in running for elections, I feel like they would come seek us, like seek AS staff out, like what's going on, like they have already. And I'm wondering if maybe those can get done like on a case-by-case basis, or has that option been explored?
To be quite honest, Jeremiah, we've been running around just trying to transition our work to remote, and just trying to get the campus back up and going. So to reach out to individual students hasn't been a high priority at this point, and this was our recommendation to try and present an equitable way for those students to have a 2-week shift and an opening to participate.
Okay, thank you, Janessa. Daniel had his hand raised.
Yeah, hi. It sounds to me like before or currently, the process for candidacy seems to be equal, and now we're trying to move for an equitable process. So to answer your question, how does it make it equitable for students who have already received their packets, picked up their packets? I think I'm not like word for word sure on the definition of equitable, but I think equitable to me sounds is being fair, or not fair, giving, I don't know how to word it, but equitable to me is something like giving a second chance almost, to those who didn't have the opportunity at first, or that did not. I don't know how to explain it, but if you can.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the fact that pushing or opening it up the filing period, waiving the petitions, that's great. That's phenomenal. In addition to that, extending the days in which you can vote from 3 to 5 days and opening that up, that's amazing. But my qualm is with the actual dates of the election. Like, that is, I think that's like not fair or just for the candidates who are currently running, but I'll leave it there and ask for a motion, or if there's any more questions or concerns or comments. If there's not, I'll ask for a motion to be made on this item. Question or comment from Montel or Floyd.
Hi, everyone. I want to ditto what Chair Finley said with the dates being pushed from 3 to 5 days, with possibly the petitions being waived. Couldn't we push the filing date closer to April 14th, like April 10th, and still have elections on April 14th?
No, if they would need to move together as a whole, like anyone who files as a candidate, we need to design a voter's guide and a sample ballot so that everyone can see who all the candidates are, and that does take time to produce and then get printed. And so the proposition is to do it as a package, as there are a lot of small moving parts in putting elections into Big Pulse, our third-party contractor, the online system for elections to be sent out, in addition to getting the proper advertisements into Lumberjack and LN online. And then the hope was to get into the published edition of the Lumberjack that will be put out so that we could stick as much to codes as we could.
Well, I don't think, well, we're trying to stick to code. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to nitpick. But okay.
The dates in the code, they are just different than what was previously approved. I completely acknowledge that. The hope is to do an increased amount of outreach on elections, with like the last 2 weeks just haven't been focused on elections when they were the last two weeks that people could file for, and the AS office was closed, and I was admittedly absent and for my own sickness. And so I think that I would really earnestly ask for the board to approve the proposition so that all students have a fair chance at being a candidate, and we can also do some really strong publicity and outreach on the new dates and get everyone excited about a 5-day elections and really get some kind of, Cassie has some Q&A ideas to install instead of like our candidate quad talks. There was just a lot of in-person stuff about our elections that needed to be completely revamped.
Thank you, Casey. I do again want to go back to the point of reimbursements for candidates who did have those dates printed on their publicity that they have planned on going out. How does the Election Commission?
We could absolutely Google form on the revamped election site to intake anybody's financial duress and have it go to the Elections Commission for them to review. And under the circumstances, we would advocate that things get refunded if that were the case.
Okay, can we put that all in all together in one motion if that comes together? Because I think it's just really good to have it set in stone with that.
I'd advocate you type out your proposed motion into the chat so that somebody could make it
Yeah, that'll be no problem. Eek.
I guess I'll just take this to check if there are any other final questions on the reasoning or what is being proposed. Cool.
I don't know if you all got that, that the Elections Commission review and reimburse all election materials that could no longer be distributed accurately due to the proposal of the Elections Commission.
I see it, and it says to all.
Huh?
I am confirming that your message has gone through to everyone.
Okay, great. So if somebody can motion, if we add consider reimbursing, what does that do? Because that language is obviously different, the reason why you're adding it. Janessa?
Okay, sorry about that. I was finding my mute button. So I was trying to picture in my head what somebody might already be out. And maybe we could have this conversation just so I can understand better. Like I'm picturing if somebody already had their flyers printed, then that would be a reasonable reimbursement because so that they would produce, they would show us somehow that they've already printed them with the previous voting dates on it. Because nobody's going to be using paper flyers anymore, right? It's going to be all electronic. So what other examples do you have that students might have to get reimbursed based on this date change?
I think you hit it on the nose with the flyers. Because paper flyers, you can't necessarily do anything with them now in our current atmosphere. So also too, the things is with receipts, and when you submit all that to be reimbursed, you have to submit it with receipts. The receipts have dates when you bought the item versus when maybe you bought the item afterwards and just decided to put the election dates on there as they were previously, just to try to get some reimbursement. I don't know why you would do that, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that. So maybe adding with appropriate, I'm going to add with appropriate proof of purchase. Because receipts, you know, sometimes people have provided us like a shot of their bank statement, you know, with things blacked out, of course, but there are other ways outside of receipts to verify payment and date.
So with payment confirmation, or with appropriate proof of purchase. Anybody can make a motion. I can't make motions except myself, Janessa, and Casey cannot make motions, or any of the non-voting members. So someone can make a motion on this item with including those two stipulations or recommendations from myself and the executive director. Either way, a motion needs to be made on this item. There's a question from Juan Guerra.
Yeah, Juan Guerrero. So just a quick question in regards to the specific date for elections. So yeah, I totally agree with the date needing to be moved because of circumstances surrounding the current state of California. But I guess my question would be, is there like a specific reason behind moving the elections like 2 weeks instead of like 1 week? There's some sort of like significant reasoning behind that?
Increase outreach to the change of dates, just to provide more time for more posts, more sharing about the April 27th to May 1st dates is the reasoning.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and thank you, Casey, for that answer. I do want to say, how do we, I think how we advertise this and how this comes out and how we roll this out to our students is really important. Because I think there's some great changes, but I do want to make sure that those who come and look and seek AS out and student advocacy out, that they're honestly in this for the right reasonings, because I think that's just so important to have such passion for this, because if without the passion, then you can't get this done. So yeah, but those conversations could be held later. But again, I'll go back and I'll ask for a motion to be made on this item.
I motion to have this resolution be approved with the stipulation that the election commissioner review and consider reimbursing all election materials with appropriate proof of purchase that can no longer be distributed accordingly due to the proposal of the Elections Commission.
Thank you, Lizbeth, for that motion. Will did have his hand up. I did not see it. Go ahead, Will, if you want.
Sorry, I may have missed something. Don't we still need to waive the first reading?
So this actually is not a resolution. This is, huh?
What is it?
That's what I was wondering too. Because I think ultimately the idea behind it is just that, like you were saying previously, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Will, but do you remember the conversation that we were having when I asked, does it need to be accompanied with a resolution?
Oh, right. The fact that it's more of a verbal motion rather than a resolution, which is a written motion.
Right. Just because previously, that's the concern I had, was the fact that we had in all of our other constitutional updates or proposed updates or proposed waivers and anything like that, we would always have, well, excluding the government co-waiver that specifically states it could be waived. This does not specifically say it could be waived or adjusted without a resolution accompanied by it. And I just really was not sure, and I thought that honestly that it shouldn't go through without a resolution. But you made that clarification about it being or needing being a verbal motion. So there's a motion on the floor. That motion is kind of out of order because of the wording of it. It would just be a motion to accept or deny or whatever the proposal to adjust the 2020 elections date and requirements as presented with the appropriate stipulations, if you wanted to put that in there. That's a motion that could be made.
Thank you for that clarification. I motion to approve the verbal proposal with everything in it, with the appropriate stipulation that the Elections Commissioner review and consider reimbursing all election materials with appropriate proof of purchase that can no longer be distributed accordingly due to the proposal of the Elections Commission. Hope that.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second the motion made by Lizbeth Cano Sanchez.
There's a second, there's a verbal, oh Lord, okay. We're gonna go with the verbal second, just for the sake of this meeting. Thank you, Sarah, for that though. There's a first and a second from Cano Sanchez and Cuellar to approve this proposal with reimbursement stipulations that were added. Is there any objections or abstentions to this motion happening, or this motion passing and the proposal being accepted? I'm looking for, okay. Seeing none, the motion passes since the proposal is accepted with the stipulations, with the financial reimbursement. Goodness. Whew. Thank y'all all for bearing with me through this process, because it is very interesting trying to share this meeting with y'all in this virtual space. But we'll go ahead and keep moving on because we're great. On to the next business item, which is the standing rules and meeting schedules. This is another action item. With the adjustments made to the schedules in response to COVID-19, there may be opportunity for the board meetings to be held at a different time than Fridays at 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. The staff recommendation is to maintain the current meeting schedule days and dates, but to adjust the meeting time to be earlier than the scheduled Fridays. So if Casey or Janessa wants to go ahead and give this presentation.
Yeah, so I can't raise my hand either as a co-host, but didn't want to stir too much of a pot, as I know scheduling is a tricky trick to do with our group. Just didn't know how much people's schedules had changed and if more of a 2 to 5 would be more comfortable, or if for the sake of normalcy, we should continue with our 5 to 8. I just figured there'd be space and didn't know if work schedules changed and wanted to provide opportunity.
So I'll go ahead and put my piece in. I have URPCs every other Monday or every other Friday, and I believe we're still meeting, just in a virtual space at different times. So, but URPC falls on the same week as board of directors meetings. So, and those meetings are 1 to 2:30. So.
Yeah, maybe in the participant chat, if people could just put a check yes or a check no on like, we like the 5 to 8 p.m., let's not belabor it. Check yes would be like, stay 5 to 8. Just so there should be discussion on it or not.
I don't know if we can do that.
It would be a call for an informal vote.
Yeah, so I don't think we can do that. Like I don't like what I'm saying is I don't think Stir just allows for us to like have a hot take or a hot pick.
Oh, it does, but that's okay if you can continue discussion in a different way.
So, sorry for just butting in. I guess the way I think we should is Jeremiah has expressed when his time works. Is anybody else have problems on Fridays past that, I guess? So like anything past 3, are you busy? And then kind of we can see where we go from there.
Thank you, Will. I think that'll be a great idea. We can put the time of the chat, or the time in there.
So I work at Starbucks, and unfortunately we're considered essential workers. And so I do work Fridays almost every Friday between the time that I get out of class, like 12 until 5. So if we move it anytime that's not the current time, I would be unable to attend most likely every week.
Okay, thank you, Rada, for that.
This is Amora. For my other job, I had a call at this same time. There's some issues at my other job, but I don't know if they're going to be changing the meeting time, but because of the issues at the other job, I think it's more flexible there. So for now, this timing is good.
Thank you. Koyar also said the time of 5 p.m. works. Follett also said anytime works for me. Angela said 3 p.m. works for me. All depends on everyone's schedules. So it sounds like everybody's pretty open to any time after 3. The 5 p.m. time is kind of 16. Well, sounds like it's good for Koyar and Amora. Everybody else looks like they're flexible anytime. So I'm just gonna say, gonna ask if we can just keep this time, just for the sake of like Casey was saying, normality, and also too so that way we can just get a groove on, like a groove, get back into the groove of meaning at this time. Sounds good. Okay. So the scanning meeting schedule, they did not change. So yeah. Next up is office hours. This is the discussion item. So we were trying to figure out how to do office hours now that the office is going to be closed. So I had created some type of thought or some type of thinking about how to carry out office hours since the agenda creation meeting. And I wanted to kind of open it up and hear some ideas before I jumped in with my proposal to you all about what I imagine them looking like, to kind of get some input from the whole board about what we think about office hours and how we want them to be, how we might want them to look like for this next half of the semester.
I raised my hand. I'm gonna start talking if that's fine.
I'll go ahead and confirm that you raised your hand. Thank you. But you can also do the verbal, I have a question, and that'll work.
Okay, cool. I guess for office hours, like I was honestly gonna plan on holding like Zoom office hours. I already have them set up and like put on my Google Calendar, just to be like a resource to students and still say that I do have like set 2 hours that I can be, you know, a point of contact, and also to use those 2 hours to like get my work done. So that was kind of like what I was gonna plan on doing, but definitely gonna do whatever the board decides ultimately.
I think that's a great idea, and I love the creativity that you have. Is there any more questions or anybody else want to add to the discussion?
This is Amora. So I've never actually had anyone visit me during office hours, and since Montel and I have the mixer canceled, I would only foresee office hours really be us working on like a new thing, but like for now we're not sure what the new thing is like at all. So I don't know what the use of office hours would be for us, because like I'm not quite sure as a representative what I should be working on if we're not going to have an event other than the committee meeting.
Okay, and you bring up some great points. What are we going to be working on? So I would just reference back to just the work that we had kind of set up in this meeting and kind of laid out that we already kind of have. I'm already looking ahead. Looking at our budget, looking at and hearing the appeals, or not hearing them, but referencing them and looking at where can we make things better. Just being overall just a part of the board and trying to figure out ways and that we can build a better budget is kind of what it's looking like for our next couple of weeks. Also too, it can be anything like what you want to focus on, what you think it should be changed. So office hours, the idea of them have not changed. And it's thoughts that you would have had already, like the same type of things that you'd be working on during your office hours would just carry over. I had originally thought, if nobody else has anything else to add, okay, Weinberg, go ahead.
I like what Bree said. I think it's a really good idea. And I would also like to add on to what you were saying, Jeremiah, that another use of our office hours is for us to be, you know, a place for students to come ask questions, especially for us college representatives. It's a time when our constituents can come talk to us. And I think this is now more than ever a very important thing, because we are going to be one of the places that students can go to and air their grievances and ask questions that we can help connect them to administration, to the right services, and really be the voice of students in this time.
I agree. Thank you so much, William, for adding that piece onto the discussion. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to Koyar.
Yeah, so I really echo the sentiments expressed by Will and Bree. I really like Bree's idea, especially if we could get like some sort of email that like explains how to set up a Zoom meeting, because I haven't done that before, but I really like the idea behind it. I also wanted to bring up the idea that during our spring training, we had all talked about having like weekly tasks for our office hours that we would be able to like complete weekly. I wonder if right now would be a good time to maybe roll that out. Maybe having some like objectives that we kind of want to hit each week. I don't know, it's just an idea.
I like your creativity. I think that's great. Like a great idea to try to create some type of something for us to have, like to do weekly, because I think that would kind of give board members an idea, like a general idea about what we should be conducting, what we should be focusing on for that week. And I would look forward to working with you on that if you like. For right now, though, we'll go ahead and move on to Conga Livingstone and then back to Weinberg and then to Cano Sanchez.
So I would like to find a different way of meeting with constituents. So I feel like creating Zoom meetings is going to be challenging to advertise. Something that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks during my office hours times is creating a Discord server where people can pop in and out of voice channels and just interact with people who are just sitting there. And so that's something I probably can do, is just sit in an open Discord server and talk to people who choose to pop in or not. I'm wondering if that would be an alternative to Zoom, because I know Zoom can be challenging to schedule and then advertise.
Thank you, Conga Livingstone. I think that some ideas could be expanded on, and we can have different conversations about discussing different alternatives. I think that I think ultimately, whatever way or whatever option we come up with will be beneficial to our students, so that way they can interact with us. Also, too, so that way we as board members can conduct our work. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to Weinberg and then to Cano Sanchez.
That's a great idea, Sarah. One problem is, and I don't know how we'll do this, but it is that back to that good old thing that we've dealt with all the time is accountability. How do we, if we're all going to be using different ways to talk, how are we going to be sure that everyone's actually doing what they're saying they're going to be doing? Would we have to like join your Discord to make sure? I think that having it all be in one place would be very good just for that one purpose, is that it's not everyone having different things. We could be coalesced not in one chat, but in one program. Other than that, Mayuli, yes, your idea is great. And I think working off of that, our board reports, we could add what we anticipate doing the next week, having kind of a task list and saying like, I anticipate working on this, like I want to do this next week. So like we could add that so people know what we are going to be working on if they want to check, and we can hold ourselves accountable. Be like, I said I want to do this, like I'm going to go do it.
Thank you, Will, for that. I think that's great. You hinted at that accountability piece, and how do we hold each other accountable for the things that we're doing in our office hours. Something that I was thinking about as well. It's kind of a perfect segue, and then I'll get to you, Cano Sanchez, in just a moment. But basically, the thought was to kind of have SRAs. We have duty reports that we do, and so kind of making whatever format that you choose. Honestly, I think as long as you're accessing students, and the students are able to access you, you're holding your office hours. For me, I'm focused on the accountability part, because I need to make sure that those office hours are being conducted as per our codes. That way I know that you're conducting your office hours accordingly. So I would be open to just even having reports or paragraphs on what you did during your office hours that you can share with myself and the board coordinator about what you conducted during those times. Kind of like what you were saying, well, we can add what we anticipate doing. If we add what we anticipate doing and then adding and then having that report afterwards being sent out, like, this is what I did do. It's like, okay, well, I think that's just the best way kind of we can create that accountability piece. Cano Sanchez.
Yeah, I wanted to use this time to remind mainly our executives that something that can also be done during those office hours, is working on our paragraphs for the policy agenda. I know that myself, I still have to set a time to definitely dig into this and get it all done and make it sound as clear and professional as possible for our future board. So I definitely think that this should be something kept on the back of the minds of our executives to get done.
Thank you for that, Cano Sanchez. I agree. And I'll go ahead and move over to Cuellar.
Thank you, Liz. I also agree. I think that getting the policy agenda done by the end of the year would be really important, but I also call on the other representatives to also, it's open to everyone. So if you want to write a paragraph, go ahead and sign up on the spreadsheet. And even if there's already a paragraph written, there's like space to be like an editor or something like that. So I would call on everyone who's interested to help out on that.
Sorry, could you make that spreadsheet more available? Is that via email? Sorry, I'm not recalling what you're talking about when you say spreadsheet.
Yeah, for sure. Can I respond, Jeremiah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I sent an email out, but I will recognize that that was a few weeks back, and with everything that's been happening, I can definitely send the email out again after this meeting just to have it more higher up on everyone's inbox.
Thank you, Cuellar. I just do want to say and just affirm and confirm that Cuellar did send out the email, and I did receive it, and I did have a chance to kind of look at it, look over what she was asking for. I thought it was pretty clear and pretty concise about the expectations. Me personally, I've been trying to figure out how these next few weeks were going to look, and so I have not gotten a chance to look at that yet, and to kind of basically write my paragraph. But thank you again, Amora, for that, asking for more accessibility to that spreadsheet, and I appreciate your input. That being said, and Casey has it pulled up right now on the shared screen if you all wanted to go ahead and take a look at it. But that being said, I'll go ahead and take all this information, this input. What I'll do is I'll create an email out and a draft email similar to how we did at the beginning of the year when we created the common hours, and I'll send those out to everyone. It'll be our office hours expectations as we move forward. But I do appreciate all of your input, and I think that we can do something special for the rest of the semester. If there's no more input, I'll go ahead and keep moving on to, I think we're almost done. The announcements. I'm looking for raised hands, and I don't see any. No verbal.
Candidate. Election filing period has been extended to April 16th. Encourage everyone to file to be a candidate, and yay, elections are now April 27th through May 1st. Get pumped.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate that. So we have, yeah, that's a wonderful announcement. Honestly, elections are here. This is a special time for all of us. We get to kind of explore who we are as individuals, what we want to do for next year. These are some great times for every person. And I'm looking forward to all the great things that come out of it. I think honestly, it'll be great. It'll be great. Wolf said, everyone stay healthy and safe and do your homework, exclamation mark. There's a raised hand from Cano Sanchez.
So I wanted to make sure to let everyone know to definitely keep an eye out for your emails. This week has been a lot of work being put into getting the credit, no credit deadline extended on top of other guidelines being made clear and within that realm. So definitely look out for those emails. I do know that they should have gone out between the end of yesterday and today, but it does take a moment. But that email is going to be filled with helpful information about what are the guidelines about regarding credit, no credit, and grades. And now that it's finalized, I will also be having that be sent to you all on our group me, so you all can filter that information. And thank you all.
Thank you, Cano Sanchez, for that announcement. I see a written announcement from Caldillo. Sun Valley is hiring for a full and part-time positions. For more information, call 707-825-5707. Academic advising starts, academic advising starts March 30th through April 10th. And I'm guessing you can follow up with Caldillo for more of an explanation. Thank you, Caldillo, for that announcement. We'll go ahead and move over to Poyar.
Kind of a comment going off of Casey's announcement. With elections coming up and us getting like really excited, I think it's kind of like an office hour idea too. I think this would be a really appropriate time for us to maybe like write letters for the people who will come after us to serve in our positions, and just leave like written institutional knowledge for those who will come after us. I don't know. Maybe I'll send out an email with like this idea being more like well-formed, but I don't know. Keep an eye out for that.
Thank you, Quayar. I agree. I think that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it. I'll go ahead and get started on my letter right now. Thank you all. Is there any more announcements at this time?
I do have a message from Mira and Raven from OSNAP and kind of health services that OSNAP is offering bags of food for students Wednesdays 10 to noon and Thursdays 1 to 3 with vegetarian and meat options. They relocated to the bottom of the JGC. Hopefully you're seeing a lot of this being posted. OSNAP does a good job of recirculating out changes to their places and times, but I just wanted everyone to know, and I'll tuck it into the chat.
Thank you, Casey, for that announcement from Mira Raven. I really do appreciate it. Let's see if someone wouldn't mind volunteering to recap a video. Okay, well, Caldillo is asking for someone to record one video with our board members about what happened in the meeting, similar to how we do it already. If anyone wants to volunteer for that. There's a hand raised from Cano Sanchez.
I would like to volunteer.
Okay, so Cano Sanchez has volunteered. If anybody else wants to join her. Okay, not seeing anybody else. Okay, if there's any more announcements at this time.
Jeremiah, this is Dean Turnbow. I don't have an announcement, but I've been on and just wanted to ask if there was anything I could answer from any students. Something that did or did not come up, any updates you're all looking for that's quick or brief before we got off the call.
Thank you, Dean Turnbow. We appreciate you being here for us. Also, so I'll go ahead and ask the board, is there any questions that we had? I know there was a couple of students who had questions that could have been addressed, but they are no longer on the call or on the conference call anymore.
Yeah, and just for everyone else's knowledge, if there's any issues around student employment of students, quote unquote, not getting paid, just send them my way. Refer whoever it is to refer the students to the Dean of Students office, but ideally everyone should be getting paid. So every now and then someone slips through the cracks, but if we find out about it, we can address it and fix it. So, but the message is students will be paid. Now students can't say, oh, you're gonna pay me, so I'm not gonna do any work, because then they won't be paid. But as long as they do what's assigned to them and work with their supervisors, they should definitely be paid. But any other comments or questions, you all can always email me, and happy Friday.
Yeah, I had a question, and this might be more rhetorical and food for thought, but it would be how do we make the campus more accessible to people with disabilities, specifically intellectual disabilities, developmental developmental disabilities, the ones that are so-called invisible, just because our campus, we don't have like many resources in terms of supporting people with disabilities.
Amal, thank you for that wonderful question. There has been conversations in regards to accessibility that have been occurring this past semester, and we've been trying to brainstorm ways to come up with more accessibility for our students, especially in regards to parking. And I don't know what the dean could offer in this conversation. However, I believe that this sounds like a great initiative that you could take up during your office hours on exploring different paths and different ways on how to achieve this goal, and just finding different routes as a student advocate to kind of really own that your advocacy role and your representation role, and creating some type and exploring those different options outside of just the board of directors meetings, because it's really important. Janessa also did just share a link to the SDRC website, disability.humboldt.edu. Thank you, Janessa, for doing that. I really appreciate that. And Amal, if you could probably click on that, you can get some ideas on how to tackle that, maybe turn this into a resolution that could be presented to the board to kind of help with that advocacy piece again.
Is it possible if I can like compile a list of tips or something like that and then like send it to someone? I'm not quite sure who the person would be, but instead of a resolution.
Definitely, I think you as an advocate you have the opportunity to do that. You're empowered to create some type of tips or that you can compile from students that they believe that this would be the right way to tackle the accessibility problem here on campus, and then present that. Honestly, I would say to the Dean of Students, as they are the Dean of Student Affairs, and kind of have that role and that position to kind of do things at that level. So she is the person who you would direct that to. But honestly, as an advocate piece and advocate part, it is on us to create this, to create and to get that information so that we can present it and present a case to be done with. But I do appreciate your advocacy.
Thank you. Is it possible to have her respond to the question as well?
I mean, if the dean would like to respond.
Yeah, I don't mind responding. So essentially, when you say mental, I think the reason Jeremiah was trying to steer maybe a more targeted conversation is because that when we say disability based on intellect, that's a very broad statement, and we would have to dig a little bit deeper on what you're referring to. But I can say that our SDRC Center is very flexible in accommodating students who ask for specific requests, and when working with their faculty members, or even like they've been providing tram services this week for students, even still within the situation that we're in. So I would say if they're specific, I think in general, when issues arise, they're more specific in nature, the easier it is to address and accommodate. So I'd be more than willing to set up a one-on-one with you. If you're interested, just send me an email to figure out where the gap is that you feel, and to get that incorporated with what the SDRC is already doing.
I prefer not to set up a one-on-one. Thank you.
Thank you, Amal, so much for your input to this discussion, and thank you, Dean Turnbow, for the response and the overall presentness that you have given to this board. We do appreciate it, and trying to expand what we're doing. I think is really important in regards to that. There is another announcement that I do kind of want to steer us towards, as we're closing up this meeting. Jordan's birthday is April 3rd. Everybody said happy birthday. So there's that. If there is any more other announcements pertaining to events that are happening on campus, updates about COVID-19 announcements in regarding to COVID-19, not necessarily updates, but things that you might want to kind of get at before we go ahead and adjourn this meeting, I'll be open to listening to those.
I know for COVID-19, I was hearing these students talking about the stimulus bill and receiving it and how they would receive it, and whether they're dependents or independents, because taxes and like FAFSA, if your parents pay for your school, you're dependent. So it was interesting. Like, I was in line for EarthSNAP and then hearing this conversation. And so I know that the COVID-19 stimulus bill, to give people checks who file taxes, it's going to Donald Trump, last time I read earlier today.
Okay, thank you so much. If you could share that with us on email, I think that would be great, so that we can kind of get into it there and dig through it. But seeing no more announcements, I really appreciate everyone. Jordan said he appreciates you all for wishing happy birthday. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 7:27. Yeah, thank you all for coming.